We're here for the quizzes, self-assessment, surveys, and question library Power Half Hour. As I mentioned, it's a 30-minute demo, so we're going to run through this really quickly.
Okay.
The quiz tool, basically there are several components to it. We have quizzes, we have self-assessments and surveys, and there's also a question library. So quizzes can be graded and are not anonymous, just as you would assume that they would be. Self-assessments are not graded and not anonymous. And an example of that would be like a practice quiz or like a review type quiz. Surveys are informal and can be anonymous, such as like a midterm reflection or, do you want pizza on Tuesday sort of
Mm.
thing. The three tools can share a repository of questions called the question library so that you can reuse and share questions among the different tools. So an example is if you had 3 quizzes and you want to use some of those questions in a midterm, you can add them to the midterm exam. Or you can use a final exam questions in a practice self-assessment for students to check their knowledge. So basically that question library is where you'll build your questions, and then you can source them out to, your various, I'll just say interface with your students or what they'll interface with. So quiz, self-assessment, or survey. So to actually build these, we will go into a course and go to activities and then down to quizzes. And we're going to go directly into the question library because that's, again, where we're going to build the content for our various quiz or self-assessment or whatever. So we're going to select new. And you'll see that we have a whole lot of options here. So I'm not going to explain every single one, but I'm going to touch on some of the most popular ones. So multiple choice, it presents a question that lists possible answers, and students would, pick their possible, their best answer. These differ from a multi-select in that they can only select one answer for, out of the multiple choice. True false is as you would expect. It is, a statement, and they determine if it's correct or incorrect. Short answer requires the students to create one word or brief sentence answer in response to open-ended question. The fill in the blank is somewhat similar, but this requires students to fill in one or more missing words in an incomplete sentence, statement, phrase. It could be terminology, things like that. The long answer requires students to write detailed answers in response to open-ended questions. You can enable users to respond in multiple sentences, paragraph, or mathematical explanations and calculations. They can also respond in HTML code if that is your how your course works. The long answer is not auto-graded, but the others can be. So that's basically our essay question, is long answer. So just for example's sake, I'm going to go to multiple choice question. And we have a whole bunch of options on this page. So first, you can title it if you want. You notice that it is optional. So if you wanted to title this so that you could see what it might be, knowledge question or, whatever it is, you can do that. You add your point value. So this is how much this question is worth. So I'm just going to leave this as, or I'm going to enter this as 5 points. You can add difficulties. So if you wanted to create this big repository of different kinds of questions, you can rank them in how hard they are if you wanted. I'm going to leave this, actually I'll set this to 3 just for kicks. Our question is going to be, we'll just do the TCU mascot, oops. And I want to point out you can insert an image. So if your questions, if it, was applicable, you can add an image in. You can add a description for that image so that you can expand upon what your question is. You'll also have, before I get too far in, you have this insert stuff button where you can, it's a little slow today. It's very slow today, but you can insert things like YouTube video, you can record yourself speaking, a little talking head. You can go reference files in your course or on your computer, and you can embed things from other websites or put pictures in. You can also link to various content, but I would caution too much into linking outside of the quiz because then they may lose access to your quiz. You can decide if the answer should be capital, lowercase, Roman numerals, or numeric, and how they'll appear. Will it be one vertical list, or are they horizontal, or is it a drop-down menu? And also if you want to randomize these so that if the three of us were all taking this quiz, we may have a different A across the board. Of course, it would know, what the right answer is, but that can help with cheating concerns. So down in this area below, you would enter your possible answers. So cat, horned frog, and longhorn. And so you enter your answers here, and then you have to put in a weight. So the weight is basically indicating what the correct answer is. So for instance, the horned frog would be 100%. However, if you had something where it could be either way, say it could be, this wouldn't make sense for this question, but it could be a cat or a dog. You could do 50% and 50% for those. So you can split the weight to give partial credit to things. If you wanted to provide feedback for each one, this is not required, but and you can choose if it shows up or not, but this would be used more so, I believe, for an assessment, a self-assessment, so that they can check their work and say, oh, it's not a cat. I should go back to page 320 in my book to learn why it's not a cat. You can give question hints and give feedback. And again, these would mostly be used for a self-assessment, but you can add it into a regular question if you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save here. I've added my question. And basically at this point, I can continue through and add more questions. I can import questions if I had them saved in a document outside, or I can, if I had a whole list of questions here, I can reorder them or edit the values. So if I wanted them to be worth 1 point instead of 5 points, or change the difficulty and things like that, I can do that from this page. To edit a question, you would select the little context menu next to it and do edit. I believe if you click the title as well, it'll open that as too. A nice thing is that you can also see when it was last modified. So if you were wondering where did this question come from, you can see, wow, that's a really old question and I need to remove it or update it. So we're going to pretend that we just created a whole bunch of questions here, and I'm just going to select Done Editing Questions. So we just built that in the question library. It is not associated to a quiz yet, or a survey or self-assessment. So we actually at this point need to create the quiz. So we'll just click the blue button. You'll see a lot of places in this platform, the blue button is your target that you want to click on for moving forward with things. So when you create a quiz, you'll see we have this tabbed setup. There's a whole bunch of options here. We're going to start first with the very first option. We're going to title our quiz. So this is what you would want to match with your syllabus. So, it would be quiz 1 or exam 1 rather than some other title that may not match in your syllabus. For this example, I'm just going to call this sample quiz. You can add it to a category in the grade book. So if you had 10 quizzes, you would have a quiz category, and you could potentially drop the lowest score or distribute weight between those different categories, or different items in that category. In this example, I'm just going to leave it as no category. So we don't have any questions at this point, so we need to add them. And what we're going to do is import those from our question library. So when we import, we're going to select an existing collection. The source is the question library. And what do we want to pull from? If I had a section that was created within my question library, such as key terms or, essays or something, I can pull from those specifically. In this example, I just have a root available to me. And what will show up here are the questions. So if I wanted every single question, I can check the box for collection root. If we had 20 questions listed here and I only wanted to grab a couple of them, I can check the individual boxes. So once I have my question selected, I just click Save. And so now in our quiz, we have that question that we created in the question library in our actual quiz. So let's see, let me make sure I've got all this. You can, let's see, we'll do done editing questions. And so now on our quiz property page, you see that question that we had. We also have new options. We can dictate how many questions show up on a page, and we can prevent students from moving backwards through the pages if we wanted. So we can control how this quiz will work for the students. Are you guys still there? I just got a pop up. Oh no. Okay. So the next thing is we have a description. Actually, I'm going to address your question I just saw. Can questions be created within a quiz, or must they always be created in the library? If they can be created in the quiz, will the question go in the library? Excellent question. So you can create questions directly in the quiz. You see that from this quiz, I do add edit questions, and I can add a new question, no problem. If I do that, however, it does not get added to the question library. So it will be more difficult to actually use it in other, say it's quiz 1 and I want to use it in a final. It won't automatically go into that question library to reuse in other formats. So that's why we recommend using that question library from the get-go. And then you can, sort out what type of quizzes or whatever it is that they get used in. Does that answer your question? Super. All right, so let me hop back over here. Okay, so we have our questions. You can see you can edit values. So if you needed to tweak those values here, you can do that. We can add a description, and there's throughout the platform, there's these little question marks so that you can say, where does this show up? So the description is shown before the quiz is available. So this may be some guideline information, hey, your quiz will be on this date. Be sure that you prepare and blah, blah, blah. The introduction will show up when the quiz is actually started. So you can reiterate information like how to get help or, anything else that they need to know. So you have the ability to toggle this on and off. Its default is off, but it's available to you. We also have a page header and footer. The header will be at the top of every quiz page, and the footer will be at the bottom of every quiz page. We also have additional advanced properties. So if you created those hints, you can allow the hints. You can disable right click. And what this means is it will not allow a student to save certain things in the quiz, like printing it. That's the biggest one. It is not compatible though with IE or Safari for Mac users. We also have the ability to disable instant messages and alerts. What that is up here in the very top, we have an instant message, and students can chat back and forth with each other, or they can talk to their peers. And it also will tell them when there's new things posted. So it's a way to distract them. So we definitely recommend that you disable the ability for your students to interact with these tools. The notification email will, anytime someone completes a quiz, it'll send you an email. So I would recommend using that carefully because you don't want to get 80 emails immediately. But if you wanted to get a notification for certain things, you can add your email in there. So before I continue to other tools, I'm a little OCD, so I'm going to click Save to make sure I save this. And now we're going to hop over to the Restrictions tab. So restrictions. You have the ability now to set your quiz as active or inactive, and this means the students will see it or not see it. We recommend if you change this to active, which it has to be in order for them to actually interact with the quiz, that you immediately set your start dates. You don't want them to be able to get into it prior to those start and end dates for the quiz. So we'll say it's active, but I don't want them to start it until tomorrow at 10 a.m. And they have until, let's see, the 10th at 2 p.m. And I can add this to our calendar. And adding it to the calendar will help the students if they set up notifications in the course, and also if they use the Pulse app, which is available to them, that will push notifications out to them, and it'll remind them that they have something due. So we definitely recommend checking that box. You have the ability to add release conditions, and what these are conditions that the students must meet in order to see the quiz. So they may not be able to see it unless they read an article that you have in the course's content, or they can see it if they've posted in a discussion or earned a certain grade or things like that, or are a participant in a group or something like that. So you have options to kind of gate and path the students into this quiz. You have additional restrictions. You can add a password. If you're super tech savvy, you can work with IP restrictions. And below, more importantly, we have the ability to set a time limit. So by default, it has no time limit, so always enforce your time limit. So I'm just going to say they have 20 minutes, and they have 5 minutes before it's flagged as late. And then you have a bunch of options of what will happen when that grace period is over. So is it late, but they keep working? Is it late, but they can't change anything, or late, but they can continue working, but it's marked as a 0 in the grade book? So it depends on how hardcore you want to be with your grading here, but these are available to you. Special access is super important. We have a lot of students with accommodations, and so this is a way, without having to use groups like we did in eCollege, you can grant additional access for a longer duration to specific users. So you can either allow those specific users those special access, or you can only allow only users with the special access to see the quiz. So, this could be for a makeup assignment or something else. So, for example, if I had a student, I wanted to add special time, they needed extra time, or maybe they're an athlete and they need to take it a different date or something, I can go and set their availability. I can enforce a time limit, and instead of 20 minutes, maybe the student needs 40 minutes, and it'll still keep a 5-minute grace period, or I can do a new grace period. I can change the late behavior. I can allow them multiple attempts. And basically at this point, I just say, Albert needs more time. So we'll set this setting just for Albert and add his access. So the rest of the class will have 20 minutes and Albert will have 40 minutes. So super, super easy to add that extended time for a student if they need it. Again, I'm going to save changes because I like to make sure I'm not going to lose anything. Now we go to the assessment tab, and this will be where you set if you want it to automatically grade upon completion. You can tie it to a grade item, and if you don't have it in the grade book, you can add it as a grade item. I'm going to just call this quiz, and we'll pretend it has 100 points possible, and just save it in the grade book. So now it's gradable. We can automatically have it send to the gradebook, which could be attractive to you if you wanted to, like, especially if it was mostly auto-graded, this would send it over for you. And notice you can also, with that grade item, when I set it up, choose when it appears in the gradebook. So you can use that for pop quizzes and things like that. You can attach rubrics to your quiz. You can set the number of attempts. And you can choose, if you allow multiple attempts, are you taking the highest, the lowest, the average, first or last attempt in the gradebook? Our next tab is the Objectives tab. You can associate learning outcomes and objectives to your course. We have further training on this if you're interested, but you can drill down to the specific quiz to associate those. Submission views, this is what your students will see. So the default is that they will see their grade in the grade book and their assessment of this immediately without the questions and no statistics. If you wanted them to see something else, you can add an additional view and you name it and you choose what you want them to see. Show the questions. Do they see incorrect, correct? What kind of things do you want them to see? Class average, distribution of grade, and so on. So these are all available to you if you want to provide different information to the student beyond the grade. Report setup, this allows you to run various reporting for question statistics, question details, user stats, attempt details, and user attempts. This allows you to create personalized reports. However, if you just want normal exam stats, you can, let me save this first. Let's see, if you want to see normal statistics, you can go to the context menu and select statistics, and this will show you the user statistics, question stats, and question details automatically. I believe you have to have at least two students who have taken the quiz for that to show up for you. Just to show you a little bit more of how this looks in a quiz that someone has already taken, we have our quiz over here, and we'll go to statistics, and I can see the score distribution, how my students did. I can go to question stats. It'll display, standard deviation, all of these other amazing statistical features, and then question details, specifically how my students actually performed and responded to the questions. You can export this as well. For grading, you can go to the grade book and view these in the grade book. You can also, from any of these, grade from the actual quiz and see how many attempts they did, how they did, their score, and you can review their actual questions by going into their attempts. Just really quick before I move on, so this was just really fast setting a quiz. You do have the ability to add that self-assessment or survey, and they work in a similar format where you just create a new one and you would import your questions in from that question library. So that was really, really, really fast. We know there's a lot in this tool, so we definitely recommend, if you plan to really dig in on this, to come to a full workshop. We can do hands-on trading and go over use case scenarios. We also have open labs almost every Monday through Thursday. It depends on scheduling here and there. Where you can come with questions, or if you want to work within shouting distance of our team, we're happy to work with you. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to send a follow-up email with a bunch of resources specific to quizzes and logging in, and videos and all kinds of stuff, our training schedule. So with that said, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
So when I'm creating a question
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to put in a quiz, and let's say that a graded quiz uh, is only going to constitute maybe 1% of their overall course grade.
Okay.
But the quiz itself will be based on, there'll be 10 questions, so it'll be 100%, and each question then is a value of 10%. So when I'm creating the questions and I'm writing the actual answer and then assigning a weight
Mm.
to each individual question, then I want to make sure that that particular question is 10%.
No. So what you would do is, in that case, we would have, where is it? The 100% here is this 100% of the correct answer? Is
Uh,
this horn frog answer, 3, the
okay.
answer to this? So yes, it's 100%. the
I
question,
see.
whatever.
Right.
If it was in your scenario, um, 10 questions and 10 points each, I would edit the value. Oh, I have to check the box. When you create it, you would enter the point value, but since I had 5
Okay.
earlier, so you'd have 10 points each, and then your
Okay.
quiz would be worth 100 points total.
I see. I see.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can randomize the questions. I know it's
Hmm.
well, you could randomize the answer options. Can
Yes.
you randomize the questions too?
You can. So let me see. You can create sections. And so you can do this either at the question library level, or I believe you can do it also at the quiz level. And
Okay.
so I would, say we had key terms or, whatever it might be. And you can decide if you want to show it. Let's see. The feedback. Let me save this. And where is that? Do you recall, Megan, how we make it randomized?
So, I think that's at the quiz
Is it at the
level.
quiz level? Okay.
You add a random section to your quiz.
That's what it was. Okay. So let me go in and edit my quiz, add the question. It's been a minute since I've done the random one. So, oh, here we
Oh,
go.
that's fine.
So it is at the quiz level. You create a
Right.
random section. And it's kind of funny that it's called random, but it's, to randomly display. And
Okay.
if you add your questions into this, random
Uh-huh.
example, um, you can, let's see, we'll move
Um,
this. Do you know how we move it in?
um, into, so I think it's within your quiz still, and so then you would just import
Import those questions. Okay.
from your collection route.
From the collection, and I
So
would
there's your
grab that question. Okay, so this is a terrible example because we have the question, we don't have like a million questions available, but
Right.
say this is a different question, and then within this we have that one random question.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess that just randomly will sort those
Okay.
as it displays to each student.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. I'll definitely play with that some.
Sure, yeah.
Um,
It's a little different than what we're all used to, which is why it's all new to all of us. Mm.
all right. Now, so this is really kind of my first foray into going into any depth with the components in this new system, but
Mhm.
I would imagine that there's an author or course view with this. In other words, can I see what the students would see when they log in?
Yes, actually, you have the ability up when you select your name to view as a
Uh-huh.
student. So you
Okay.
can see your course, and when you go to content, you can see, what is released currently to your students.
Okay.
And when you go to quizzes, you'll see, is it available? Oh, it's not available till tomorrow, so I can't do anything.
Okay.
So, yeah, it'll give you a similar view. As an instructor, when you're in your course, there's no author and course view like we had in e-college.
Right.
However, it will display items, in a similar way that the students would see, but you'll see if it's a draft and whatnot. If you were to edit things, you basically just select it. So you would click on
Okay.
it and it lets you start editing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. Do you have any
Um,
other questions? Oh, go ahead.
there's also options like within the quiz. If you were to go in the quiz, there's a preview. You can click the preview mode
Ah, yes.
Oh, okay.
the quiz
So
that
you,
way, but it's
and you can,
still different than being in student view.
I
right,
see.
as a professor, you can bypass the restrictions of like date and time and things like that. So you can go and
Okay.
see what it would be like as that student.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for adding that in, Megan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So in this, it actually has you save for each question, and you can save all responses, and then it will have you submit the quiz
Okay.
and, you know, bump it into the gradebook or whatever. Yeah.
Wow, sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Hope it
it's
works is awesome.
yeah, so far so good. So, yeah, for sure. Start playing a bit. And we definitely recommend if you're going to implement a online quiz for the first time to plan early. And especially
Yeah,
if you need us to take a look at it, give about 2 weeks ahead of time so that we can, look through and see, oh, you don't have this set up right, or, make recommendations. So definitely
okay.
plan a little early with it. I also want to point out that I mentioned really quickly you can, let's see, does it have, you can, if you have your questions in a Word document, you can use
Mhm.
a sample file to import your questions in.
Mm,
So that's available to you as well. So you may want to consider that if you have them, on a paper in a Word
okay.
file or something else. So it'll guide you through the formatting, and then you can import that in. So that may help
Mm,
speed up, and then it would just be refining, make it look
mm,
a little better.
yeah. Okay. That
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, and I'll send a
Thank you.
follow-up email with
Sure.
more resources than you probably need, but hopefully it'll get you rolling. And we're here. We know it's a big adjustment for everybody to learn a new platform, so we're here to help support you.